John King is anchor of CNN's John King USA and the network's chief national correspondent. He most recently served as anchor of State of the Union with John King, a 4-hour Sunday news program. He joined CNN in May 1997 and served as senior White House correspondent from 1999 to 2005. Since the launch of State of the Union in January 2009, Mr. King has interviewed a wide range of key newsmakers, including President Barack Obama and former Vice President Dick Cheney, who joined the program for his first television interview since returning to private life. Mr. King has made it a priority to travel outside of Washington each week to gather the voices of everyday Americans and tell their stories. In fact, he visited all 50 states during the first year of the Obama presidency. The 2008 presidential campaign was the 6th presidential campaign Mr. King covered, and he was a key part of CNN's innovative America Votes 2008 coverage. He also contributed to CNN's Emmy-winning 2006 midterm election coverage, as well as to coverage of the 2004 presidential race, the Iraq War, the September 11th terrorist attacks, the tax cut debates of 2001 and 2003, and the war on terrorism. In 2006, he reported an hour-long special on executive authority titled Power Play. He has conducted one-on-one interviews with an array of senior officials, including President George W. Bush, First Lady Laura Bush, former Secretaries of State Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. In 1998, during the Clinton administration, Mr. King conducted an exclusive joint interview with President Bill Clinton and Prime Minister Tony Blair in Birmingham, England. Before joining CNN, Mr. King wrote for the Associated Press, which he joined in 1985. In 1991, he was named the AP's chief political correspondent. It's my honor to present today's keynote speaker, John King.
Good morning. Let's get right to the most important thing I can say or do today, and that is to say congratulations to you, the class of 2010. Give yourself a hand. You look happy. Most of you look reasonably awake. You look great in blue. And you look more than ready to begin your journey from this special place. Congratulations as well, and please applaud them, to all the parents and family members here today. You and your checkbooks help make this day happen. And your being here today makes our celebration all the more special. Provost Berliner, thank you for that kind introduction. It was just as CNN wrote it. Now, all of you know a little bit about what I do for a living. Maybe by the time we're done in a few minutes, you'll know a little bit more about who I am. And maybe a couple things I've learned since I sat in your place 25 years ago, yes, I'm old, can help you as you start your journey. President Rabinowitz, thank you so much for your hospitality and for letting me share this special day at the Hofstra community. And to Mr. McKean, the faculty members, all the special honorees, this might be your last chance to applaud them. Those who have helped you so much, give them an applause. As you just heard, I travel a lot, and so when I go back to someplace, I try to remember, when was I first there? This morning so far does not, emphasis on does not, remind me of my first morning on Long Island. That was about 22 years ago, after a friend's bachelor party. It was a long night. And to keep it tame, let's just say, isn't breakfast at White Castle really a special treat? I promised to be on slightly better behavior this morning. I'm still not exactly sure why I was offered this great privilege to be with you. Perhaps it's because brevity is in high demand at such occasions, and in my business, if you talk for 3 minutes, they tend to tell you you talked for 2 minutes too long. I can't promise 3 minutes, but I won't delay the celebration too much. As the provost mentioned, I worked in print journalism for a dozen years before I switched to television. So when people ask me what I do, I like to say, I used to be a real reporter. Now I play one on TV. It's a joke most days. But what do I know that might be of some assistance to you? I do believe this from the bottom of my heart. First and foremost, the most simple lesson you can learn. Hard work pays off, especially when times are hard. I've covered 6 presidential campaigns, as you just heard, the first at the age of 24, and I'm gearing up now for number 7. You betcha. 2 wars, firsthand, they're ugly. Natural disasters ranging from tornadoes and hurricanes to the horrible Southeast Asia tsunami a few years back. And then, we'll see who gets this, there was the night I rushed home from work to get my conversion to Judaism to the finish line, which means the night I rushed home from work to meet the moil. Now, those laughing are Jewish because they feel my pain. They can explain it to you later if you don't get it. I raise that and the other experience is just to let you know I know a tough assignment when I see one. And being here is a bit of a tough assignment. The job of your commencement speaker is to deliver some uplifting, heartwarming, inspiring message. Well, lucky me. 9.8% unemployment. A country most Americans view as on the wrong track. A political system that I've spent now a quarter century covering that more often than not seems petty and polarized. So you don't need me, and you didn't need your president, although he did it eloquently, to tell you you're heading out into a tough environment. And maybe you think it's hard to be upbeat about a lot of things. But the guy standing in front of you is an optimist, and I urge all you to be optimists as well, and to follow this pretty simple request I have today. Don't overthink what you want to do next. And don't get too down if the path when you leave here isn't exactly as you had envisioned it. Take what you have learned in class here. More importantly, take what you've learned about yourself here. And begin a journey. Not afraid at all. Actually, be excited by the fact that it will take some unexpected detours. I have a great job and a fancy title. I don't think of myself as anybody with great insights or wisdom. But I do wish each and every one of you my good fortune. That is to find a career you love with a genuine passion. In my case, a job and a journey that has taken me from a working class family in Boston to all 50 states, most of them twice or 3 times, and to 75 countries around the world. I was sitting there in awe, in absolute awe, the day Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. I was traveling with Al Gore. He was the vice president at the time. And he had a brief meeting just before this historic inauguration with Mr. Mandela. And they shake hands, and then suddenly, over he comes. Nelson Mandela, on the day he's about to make history, walks over to the small group of reporters very casually, says, "Hi, how you doing? Good morning." I was speechless, but what a powerful, powerful lesson in humility. One reason I love my job is that I work in what I like to call the curiosity business. When I left school like you 25 years ago, I had a pretty good stack of student loans to pay off. Now I get paid to learn, and it's a great gig. But the first step on my journey was opening the Providence Bureau of the Associated Press at 4 a.m. every day, talking to the coffee pot, half expecting it to talk back. The lesson there is don't be afraid to start at or near the bottom rung of the ladder. In fact, I highly recommend it. You learn more, and if you're good at what you do, you'll move up just fine. And when you get to the top, you'll not only be better prepared, you'll be a better person. Don't be in too much of a hurry. Let me repeat that. Don't be in too much of a hurry. And remember the lessons you learn from the people you meet along the way. Let me share a few of mine. I learned a lot, an awful lot, in a decade covering Bill Clinton. Boy, did I. He calls me Johnny. It's a Southern thing. He's also called me a few other names, but we'll keep this family friendly. The biggest lesson I learned from covering Governor and then President Clinton is that success requires a steely determination. He was going to be President of the United States. He was going to survive Monica Lewinsky and impeachment. There were so many times, both as a candidate and as president, where the conventional wisdom said, he's dead. But love him or otherwise, this is no conventional guy. And he persevered and thrived because of a remarkable sense of toughness and tenacity. 1 ounce of his determination would serve each of you well. I also learned a lot covering George W. Bush, including this. We discount the role of faith in our public life and in the political choices people make at our peril. This is a big country. Everybody's vote counts just the same. Maybe faith guides your politics. Maybe it doesn't. In either case, respect those who might think a little differently from you. And if you want to sell them a product, or maybe sell them a candidate, or just make them your friend, my advice is to spend a little time trying to understand the people you encounter who are different, who think differently, who maybe pray differently. Here's another lesson. This one I learned from General Colin Powell. Always be prepared, but always have a plan B. I met General Powell covering the first Gulf War back in what we now call the first Bush administration. He tells this wonderful story of being at the table when Mikhail Gorbachev sort of matter-of-factly leans over to Ronald Reagan and says, "The Cold War's over. I'm going to let the Soviet Union break apart." Now, you would think General Powell would be celebrating this amazing moment, but he says running through his mind is, no, don't let this happen. I've spent my whole life preparing to fight this enemy, living by these rules. He learned to adapt because he had no choice. Neither will you. Sooner or later, neither will you. So have a plan B. Just a few more. These are from people you'll never find in a history book. It was from my mother I learned that dignity is quiet. You're about to enter a world. You are the most connected generation in history. And you are entering a world of constant noise and distraction. And this revolution, for the most part, is great. It brings us together. There's Facebook and Twitter and everything else. I have a little magic wall I get to use. It's a great toy. But in this age of constant noise and distraction, it is a good lesson at the moments that matter most to remember to block it out. Dignity is quiet. I learned the lesson of a man named Sam Burton under a beautiful magnolia tree in Pearlington, Mississippi. As he put it, don't ask until you really need. I met him 6 months after Katrina. His house was still in shambles, his church too. Yet there was Reverend Burton, 82 years young, sitting and smiling and singing. He was teaching these church volunteers from New Jersey the verses of Amazing Grace, and he was mesmerizing them. They were spellbound with stories of the KKK and the Civil Rights Movement, and how he rode out Katrina up in that tree, clutching his young grandson. Sam Burton had been a preacher for 50 years, and he says as the waters kept rising and he kept clutching, he finally looked up and said, "Lord, I've been down here helping you for a very long time. Now it's your turn to help me. Don't ask until you really need." The lesson of a man named Sabri is seared into me. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you will fail. I met Sabri in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, right after the tsunami. I could not find a way to tell his story the way it deserved to be told, and it still haunts me. I met him in a crowded refugee camp. He was carrying a wrinkled photo of a little girl. She had brown hair and these big, spectacular brown eyes. Her name was Dira, 2 years and 7 months old. Sabri kept saying, "It was my fault." He grabbed his infant daughter when everything started to move, but he couldn't make it across the room in time, and his wife, Indira, was swept away by the water. He recovered his wife's body, and he buried her. And then he spent 16 days walking from camp to camp, trying to find Dira. He kept approaching people and unfolding this tattered photo, kept saying she was wearing a yellow dress, kept saying she liked fruit, kept saying it was his fault. I could see the pain of thousands in the eyes of this one man. Sabri tried and tried and tried as hard as he could, but he couldn't find his precious Dira. And as hard as I tried, I could not do his story justice. No matter how hard you try, some days, in work and in life, you will fail. The test, though, of what you've learned here and the character you're building is how you get up and what you do next. I'm a very private person. That might sound sort of odd coming from a guy you can see most days on television. But that's what I do. It's not who I am. And there's one last lesson in that. There was a time when I forgot to separate the two, and I paid a very high price. Work became so important. I was missing t-ball, karate, dance class, the joy of a child's laughter at the dinner table, the priceless, irreplaceable gift of "Good night, Daddy," said in a quiet yawn. I was failing the simple test my father set out for me a long time ago. Look in the mirror. If you're not at peace with that person, if you can't hold the stare, then fix the problem. I still miss too much, but my children are my best friends now, and I learn so much more from them than they learn from me. So don't be in too much of a hurry. Laugh. Let everybody else worry. Enjoy the bumps and the inevitable detours. Remember, dignity is quiet. Be involved in the challenges of your day, whether they are the politics of your day, whether they're helping other people, whether it's something at work. Be involved in the challenges of your day. One of the big questions in our country and our politics now is whether you will give up or whether you will jump in. Jump in. It's a lot more fun. Be fearless and ambitious, and I hope, like me, you get to go places you never imagined you would get to go. See and meet and say hello to people you would never imagine that you would have that opportunity with. But, this is an important but, when you feel that tug of war, and you will, put family first. Put family first. That is the simplest lesson. And I hope, no matter how far you go and how high you climb, it will remain the most important. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing this day with me. I'll see you at the White Castle.